Hello and greetings to everybody. My name is Amalia Diana Espinosa, and this is my presentation on the literacy journal article that we had to present for our English 3345 course. And the title of my journal article that I chose to present is Intellectualizing Adult Basic Literacy Education, a Case Study, written by Kelly S. Bradbury. This is the bibliography. So here is the MLA citation for the journal article. And at the bottom, I included some useful information about the author. Again, the author's name is Kelly S. Bradbury, and this article is published within the Community Literacy Journal back in 2012. Kelly S. Bradbury is an assistant professor of English at the College of Staten Island, whose interests are rhetoric and composition and literacy studies. Now, before we dive into the main arguments, the summary, and the important points of the article that I would like to mention within this video, it is important to understand the concepts in order to understand the author's main arguments within the article. So the first definition or concept that we need to understand prior to have a better understanding is intellectualism. This is a theory or mental perspective that emphasizes the use, the development, and the exercise of intellect, and is a doctrine that knowledge is derived from pure reason. The next definition or concept is social hierarchies. These are systems of social organization in which some individuals enjoy higher social status than others, or particularly they just are part of a higher social status than others. But it's basically the individuals that are arranged by group status and have different access to social and material resources. The next concept to understand are learning sites, and these are the involvement of someone or some group of people taking a community building function and some local people prepared to direct the process and engagement in the community building effort. So as we will see within the article, the Lindenburg Center is an example of a learning site where writing workshops were offered, and the author observed the participants who were interested and motivated learners who valued education. To continue the concepts in order to understand the article better, we have the next concept, which is a GED. And this is a high school equivalency diploma that can be used to apply to college or for a job resume. And it's basically an accreditation similar to a high school diploma. Next, we have a GED preparation, and this is the instructional process in which tests are designed to measure the proficiency in standard high school subjects known as courses to prepare for the GED test. And then lastly, we have writing workshops, and these are instructional practices designed to help groups of students, an example, but basically a group of people to become confident and efficient writers. So now we're going to move on to the summary of the article. And the article confronts the disputable assumptions about intellectualism and gives an expanded view on intellectualism as a definition. Because having these assumptions really hinder the inclusion of other people who don't necessarily fit the strict guided definition of what intellectualism is. The article states it is important to recognize and confront the biased views of intellectualism because they do not only influence public perceptions of the engagement with education in this theory, but they also impact on how instructors teach schools within the United States, helping in regulating social hierarchies that privilege the knowledge, learning, sites, and educational experiences of the cultural elite. Lastly, this journal was conducted upon the observations and interviews with adult learners participating in GED preparation and writing workshops recorded by the author. So moving on to the first concept that the what the author writes and argues within the journal article is the problematic assumptions about intellectualism. So the author of this article quoted another author's view of basic writing as a skills course, reinforced linguistic prejudices, and masked the underlying problems of racism, class discrimination, and other forms of social inequality. Called for a writing pedagogy that would give agency and authority to basic writing students, typically silenced by prejudice and inequality. So basically, with this theory of intellectualism, there were a lot of problems that were not addressed and were hidden behind this theory that really did not help the people who were marginalized within the society, those who were not intellectually able to articulate or write, or who were not capable of finishing school or receive an education, or able to defend themselves in discourse or anything in that matter because of their lack and inability to obtain a better education. And in addition, American popular culture reflects and perpetuates the widespread perception that Americans are ignorant, anti-intellectual, or lack reason. And then furthering, consequently, Americans conflate, which means they combine intellectualism and academic makers of intelligence. And as a result, adult basic literacy programs are not recognized as valuable in cultivating an intellectual public, which is not true. Some of the more widely read critiques of American culture published in the last few years continue to tie intellectualism and the acquisition of a particular kind of knowledge and to living for ideas, and fail to mention or consider the work of non-traditional educational institutions, such as the Lindenburg Center. So at this part of the journal article, the author now is going to challenge the problematic assumptions about intellectualism. So with the Lindenburg Center. So if we define intellectualism as a desire to learn and to practice of critically engaging with ideas, then our views of intellectualism can include education for a practical purpose, the study of useful practical and experimental knowledge, and non-traditional and vocational sites of learning. The Lindenburg Center is a neighborhood nonprofit institution in the Midwest that has been providing programs designed to promote economic advancement, self-sufficiency, and leadership among youth and adults for over a century. With the broader definition of intellectualism, the author points out the Lindenburg Center as a community that cultivates intellectualism. And this case study showed that the students' interest in education and their willingness to participate and commit to the intellectual activities came through the awareness that they needed this knowledge and to acquire the things that they desired. And this came from experience and maturity. So the findings from the author in this case study were derived from the groups or the people that she had the opportunity to interview and observe within this learning site called the Lindenburg Center, which the majority of the people were above the age of 50, and for reasons they did not get to finish or have a proper education. And there was a correlation between the older the participant, the more maturity and the realization that they realize that education is important and is needed within society to order to obtain the position that they wanted to be in that part of their life. So many of them wanted to be role models for their children, for their grandchildren. They wanted to be better citizens, and they wanted to understand and go and they wanted to increase their knowledge, but also overcome their lack of their education, and they wanted to further advance in life, and rather than the position that they found themselves. and also be role models for their families and for others who want to continue their education. And they wanted to prove that they just didn't want their diploma to be handed to them, but they wanted to earn their GED. So why is this journal article? What is the importance? So we need to challenge the problematic assumptions about intellectualism that impose these privileges and make intellectualism exclusive. Again, these programs, such as the Lindenburg Center and other learning sites, they want to help people achieve their goals in their education, and having this intellectualism be exclusively applied to people who have the privilege of getting to the education, to all of those resources, and just saying that the people who don't have an education or didn't finish, they're not part of this theory. It really is problematic and hinders a lot of people within our country and across the world. This case was a scale model approach to schools can have within the education system all over the country. So this was just a small scale model between a group in this center, but realistically, there are children who haven't gotten to that point or who haven't dropped out of school yet, but are in risk and need to be included, that they too are intellectual, and just because they don't have the socioeconomic or they're not guided to the resources that they're available to, they can and will be able to achieve their success in their education. And their attention is the attention towards these students. It is imperative that they get the guidance that they need in order to succeed in their education. And the author drew upon her work with the GED learners at the Lindenburg Center. In other words, she used real testimonies of people's progress in this program as they were preparing to take the GED preparation exam, the GED exam. And this case study demonstrated that workshops not only satisfy students' general interest in learning and help them work towards their goal of getting their GED, but it also fosters students' critical thinking and engagement with ideas, characteristics on a broader definition of intellectualism. Again, a broader definition would just include everybody, and everybody would feel that they too are capable of accessing higher education and higher opportunities within their lives. These are my final thoughts and points from the journal article. And to start off, the theory of intellectualism within the United States has changed within the past centuries and has had negative effects towards those who did not fit and were examples of this theory within society. Simply because a person does not consider themselves an intellectual does not mean they are not capable of reinforcing or strengthening their knowledge. People who value an education and who want to increase their knowledge are intellectuals and part of a broader definition of intellectualism, as the author Bradbury tried to explain within this whole journal article. Writing workshops and learning sites should not be seen as simply remedial classes for less intelligent people, but rather as crucial support in narrowing the gap of inadequate views that state these programs do not help or change people's lives. This is one of the important points, because these workshops, these resources, these centers, they do promote the engagement of people with their education, and it does foster for people to be more engaged and more willing to learn, because education is key in succeeding, and the desire to learn more, it automatically should include you within this theory of using your thinking and critical and cognitive skills. And the last point is, it's never too late to continue your education, to reach your goals, or to work toward a diploma or higher level of learning. The people demonstrated within this case study, they tried in this program, and they were trying to reach their dreams and their goals, and I'm sure that throughout the course of the program, they were able to accomplish that. But it's never too late to really put your desire into whatever you want to achieve, because as long as you give it your dedication and you really, really, really work hard towards it, it's possible. And it's never too late. So thank you for listening, and thank you for viewing this video on my presentation for this course.